I want you to stay with me for this. I want you to hear every single detail I'm about to give you, because the details are what make this real, and real is what this is. I know how it sounds before I even say it. I know that when a person describes something that cannot be explained, the first instinct is to look for the hole in the story, the mistake, the thing they missed that makes it ordinary again. I spent 6 months looking for that hole myself. There isn't one. What happened to me on that lake happened, and it left marks that don't go away. And I am telling you tonight because I have carried this alone for long enough, and because I think, on some level, I need someone else to understand that there are things out there in the frozen dark that we do not have names for yet. I am 41 years old. I have been ice fishing since I was 8, when my father first drilled a hole in a frozen pond behind my grandparents' property and lowered a line down with me kneeling beside him in the cold, both of us breathing fog into the air, both of us silent in that particular way that men in my family go silent when they're doing something they love. Ice fishing is patience. It is cold and it is quiet, and it is about learning to exist inside emptiness without needing to fill it. I have fished alone more times than I can count. I have been on lakes at 4 in the morning in January with the temperature sitting at -20 and a wind cutting across the open ice that makes your eyes water instantly. And I have never once felt afraid out there. Never felt unsafe. The ice is a knowable thing. You test it. You respect it. You learn its language. I know the difference between the deep, resonant boom of thermal expansion and the sharp crack of a weak spot. I know how ice moves. I know what it sounds like when it is healthy and thick and when it is not. I want you to know that about me before I tell you what happened, because I want you to understand that I am not someone who panics, not someone who misreads his environment, not someone who mistakes a natural phenomenon for something supernatural out of ignorance or fear. I know ice. I have spent 33 years learning it. And what I experienced on that lake was not something ice does. The lake is not one I'm going to name. I've thought about whether to name it, and I've decided against it. And if you push me on that, I'll tell you it's because I don't think the location is the important part, and that's true. But it's also true that I have not been back, and I don't want to go back, and I don't want a name on this story that makes it searchable in a way that connects it back to me. I've been going to this lake for 7 years. It's about 40 minutes from the nearest plowed road, which means in winter you either drive your truck out across the ice from a boat ramp on the southern end, or you hike in through the woods on the east side. I usually drive. The ice on this lake is consistently deep. I've measured it at 14, 15, even 16 inches in the coldest winters, which puts it well above anything you need for a truck. I have never had any trouble on this lake. I have never felt any reason to be anything other than comfortable there. The morning I'm describing is a Tuesday in the last week of January. I'm up at 4:30. I have a thermos of coffee, a second thermos of soup, my tackle box, my auger, my tip-ups, my sled, all of it staged by the door the night before the way I always do it. My wife is asleep. I leave a note on the kitchen counter because she worries even after all these years, and the note is habit. It is routine. It is the small act of reassurance that keeps peace in our house. I drive the 40 minutes in darkness, the roads empty, the sky beginning to lighten at the edges the way it does in January when the sun comes up reluctantly and late. I pull to the boat ramp and I check the ice at the shore. Chisel, test. No flex, no sound, perfect, and I drive out. I set up 60 yards from the eastern shore, roughly in the center of the section I've fished most consistently over the years. I drill my hole. I set my lines. I pour my first cup of coffee, and I sit on my bucket, and I let the silence come in around me. For the first 2 hours, nothing happens that isn't supposed to happen. The sun comes up. The ice makes its usual sounds, the low, distant groan of it shifting, the occasional sharp report from somewhere farther out that I register and dismiss the way you'd register and dismiss a car backfiring on a street you know well. I catch 2 small perch, both of which I release. I pour my second cup of coffee. I think about nothing in particular. I am completely at ease. I want you to hold on to that because it becomes important, the ease. The absence of any anticipatory dread. Because what happened didn't announce itself. It didn't build. It arrived the way a door opens in a house that's supposed to be empty. I am looking out toward the far shore when I first hear it. Not a boom, not a crack, not anything I have a name for. It is a sound like someone slowly drawing a knife across glass. Thin, high, precise, coming from directly beneath my left foot. I look down. The ice is clear under the sun and I can see into it. See the bubbles frozen in suspension from when the lake first froze back in November. See the slight discoloration where an old crack healed over in a previous winter. And I see the new crack. It is the width of a human hair and it runs in a perfectly straight line, not following any existing structure in the ice, not tracing any old damage, just running clean and new and deliberate from somewhere behind me to a point about 3 feet ahead of where I'm sitting. I watch it for a moment. I tell myself, thermal, expansion. The sun is warming the ice surface and it is reacting. This is normal. Ice talks. I know this. I set my coffee down and I stand up because standing is instinct when you feel the ice do something unexpected, and the moment my weight shifts, the crack stops. Just stops. Goes quiet. Like it was listening. I turn very slowly and I look behind me, in the direction the crack came from. There is nothing. Flat white ice extending back to the south shore. No new surface marks. No visible damage. Nothing. I turn back to face my gear, and I hear the second one. This crack starts to my right. Same sound. That thin, precise, glass knife sound. And it runs from roughly 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock from where I'm standing, curving slightly, and I watch it form in real time, and I feel something in my chest that is not quite fear yet, but is the territory just before fear, the place where your body knows something before your mind does. Because this crack is not running in a straight line. It is curving. Ice cracks in lines. Ice follows stress fractures and grain structures and existing weakness. Ice does not curve. Not like this. Not with this kind of deliberate, consistent radius. I take one step to my left, toward my sled, toward my auger, toward my truck. And behind me, immediately behind me, I hear 2 more cracks form in rapid succession. Pop, pop, one after the other, like footsteps pacing me, like something marking my movement. I freeze. I look down. The crack pattern has extended around my right side now, and I can see that the 2 I just heard formed behind me, and they have connected, or nearly connected, with the curve that formed on my right. And together they are tracing an arc, and I know in the way you know things that you desperately wish you didn't know, that these cracks are forming a circle. I get down on my knees. I press both palms flat on the ice, one inside the forming circle, one outside it, feeling for differences in temperature, in resonance, in anything. The ice inside the circle feels different. I don't have a better word for it. Warmer isn't right, exactly. More present, maybe. Like the difference between pressing your hand against a wall and pressing it against a door behind which something is standing. The ice outside the circle is just ice, cold and inert and ancient. The ice inside the circle is something else. It has a quality to it, a responsiveness. And then I feel it, the vibration. It comes up through my palms from the ice, and it is rhythmic, slow, regular as a metronome. I hold my breath because I think for one disorienting second that I am somehow feeling my own heartbeat through my hands, amplified by the ice surface, some physical phenomenon I've simply never encountered before. But my heart is racing now, and this vibration is slow, measured, maybe 30 beats per minute. The rhythm of something enormous and calm, resting far below me in the black water. Something breathing. I stand up. I look at the circle around me. It is complete now, or very nearly complete. There is a gap of maybe 6 inches in the arc somewhere to my north. And it is a circle with the precision of something drawn by a tool, not the ragged, irregular pattern of any naturalized fracturing I have ever seen. The circle has a diameter of roughly 5 feet with me at its center. My sled, my auger, my tackle box, my thermos, all of it sits just outside the circle, inches beyond the crack line. And in the context of what I'm looking at, it seems almost arranged, almost intentional. Like the gear was excluded and I was included, and the distinction was made carefully. I look at my fishing hole. It is roughly 18 inches to my left, and it is inside the circle with me, which means that whatever is down there in the water, whatever has drawn this circle from beneath, has a line of sight to the surface right here where I am standing. I stare into the hole. The water is black, January black, the particular dense darkness of deep water under thick ice, and I can see nothing in it. But I am standing very still, and the vibration is still in the ice under my feet, and I watch the water in the hole, and then I see it. Not a shape exactly, more like a density, a place where the blackness is somehow blacker than the blackness around it, where something is interrupting the uniformity of the dark water, something large and close to the surface and absolutely still, the way a thing goes still when it is looking at something. I don't make a decision to jump. My body makes the decision. One moment I am standing inside the circle, and the next moment I am outside it. One long stride across the crack, both feet landing on the ice on the other side with a force that sends a jolt up through my knees. I grab my sled with one hand. I leave my second thermos. I leave 2 tip-ups that I have owned for 8 years. I leave my coffee. I leave everything that isn't in my hands right that second, and I run. I run for my truck with my sled skidding behind me and the ice surface blurring under my boots, and I do not look back. I do not allow myself to look back. I can hear the ice behind me, or I think I can hear it. That same glass knife sound, moving, following, and I run faster and I reach the truck and I get in and I lock the doors, which is a reflex that makes no rational sense on a frozen lake, and I do it anyway, and I drive. I make it to the highway and I pull over in the parking lot of a closed gas station, and I sit there with the truck running and my hands on the wheel, and I breathe. I breathe for a long time. I go through every explanation I can construct. Bad ice. Some kind of subsurface geological event. Gas is trapped beneath the ice, creating pressure variations. A thermal current in the lake water creating localized heating. I stack these explanations on top of each other, and for about 20 minutes, I almost believe them. And then I stop believing them, because none of them account for the circle. None of them account for the precision of it. None of them account for the way it formed around me specifically, tracking my position, completing itself as I moved. I tell my wife I had a bad feeling about the ice and turned back. She doesn't press. She is used to me making conservative calls on the ice, and she doesn't press. I spend that evening telling myself I am going back in a week when my head is clear and I have some distance and I can look at what happened with logic and calm. I spend the following week going back and forth. On the 8th day I drive out there. I leave my truck at the road because I am not driving on that ice again. Not yet. And I hike in through the East Side Trail, 40 minutes through the woods in cold that makes my lungs ache. And I come out onto the lake from the tree line, and I walk to where my gear should be. My tip-ups are still there. My second thermos is still there, lying on its side. Everything is exactly as I left it. Exactly as if 8 days haven't passed. As if the wind hasn't blown. As if nothing has touched it. All of it sitting just outside the circle. I make myself look at the circle. It is still visible. The crack sealed in the subsequent cold, fused back into the surface, but the line of it is still traceable, slightly lower than the surrounding ice. A ring of compressed surface that you would only notice if you knew to look for it. A perfect circle, 5 feet across, still geometrically exact 8 days later. I walk around it twice. I do not step inside it. I lean over the crack and I look at the center of the circle, at my fishing hole, and I see that the hole has refrozen. as it would in 8 days of January cold. But on the surface of the refrozen ice over the hole, there is a print, a handprint, pressed up from underneath, from the water side, into the ice that formed over the hole. 5 fingers, a palm, every line and crease of it visible in the surface of the ice in the way a face pressed against glass leaves an impression. The hand is large. I place my own hand beside it for comparison, and my hand, which is not a small hand, covers maybe 60% of it. I take photographs. I take 11 photographs. I look at them in the parking lot, and I look at them at home, and I have looked at them more times than I can count in the months since, and they are what they are. A circle in the ice. A handprint in the ice. A print left by something that was underneath 14 inches of solid ice pressing upward toward the light, toward the surface, toward me. I have shown the photographs to 2 people. One of them is my brother-in-law, who has fished his whole life and who looked at the circle photograph for a long time without speaking and then asked me if I was okay. The other is a limnologist, a freshwater scientist I contacted through a university, sending the photos without context, asking only if he could identify any natural phenomenon that would produce this pattern. His response took 3 weeks and contained the sentence, "I'm not able to identify a natural process that would produce this," followed by questions I didn't answer. I still fish. I fish rivers in summer, and I fish ponds near roads in the shoulder seasons. I do not ice fish. I will not ice fish. When winter comes and the lakes freeze over and the ice fishing forums light up with reports and coordinates and photographs of catches, I look at them and I feel something I don't have a word for. Not fear exactly. Not anymore. More like the feeling of being aware of a door in a room you live in. A door you have decided never to open. A door you can hear sometimes when the house is quiet. Something behind it, patient. Not gone. Not finished. Waiting. In the way that things which have no sense of time wait. Without urgency. Without frustration. Simply present and available for whenever you decide to come back. I think about the handprint. I think about it at odd moments. Sitting in traffic. Lying in bed at the edge of sleep. Standing in the shower in the dark with the water running cold because I lost track of time again. I think about what it means to press your hand against the underside of ice 14 inches thick, to press it hard enough to leave a mark in the refreezing surface. I think about the force that requires, and what has that kind of force, and whether it was pressing toward me or testing the thickness, measuring, calculating. I think about the fact that the circle sealed behind me when I ran, that the ice closed over, that there was no rupture, no breakthrough, no evidence that anything tried to follow. I think about that and I try to decide whether it is reassuring, and I never can. Because there are 2 ways to read it. One is that it couldn't follow. The other is that it didn't need to. Story number 2. I am going to start at the end, or what I hope is the end, and work back from there, because that's the only way I know how to tell this without losing you in the middle of it. The end is this. 3 weeks ago, I woke up at 3 in the morning in my own bed with my phone in my right hand, the screen warm and bright in the dark, and the call log open. I had made a call in my sleep. A 4-minute call. To my own number. I have no memory of making it. I have no memory of waking up, picking up the phone, dialing. I have no memory of the call at all. What I have is the log. What I have is the warm screen. What I have is the knowledge that somewhere, on a voicemail inbox that belongs to the same number that made the call, there is a 4-minute message in my voice that I haven't listened to yet, and I am not ready to listen to it yet, and I may not ever be ready, because I know what the other ones said and I know what they mean, and I am not sure I am equipped to know more. Back to the beginning. I need to take you back to the beginning. I am 38 years old. I work in data analysis for a logistics company, which is a job that requires a particular kind of brain, orderly, pattern-seeking, comfortable with large amounts of information that need to be sorted into meaning. I tell you this because it matters. I am not a fanciful person. I am not someone who looks for mystery in ordinary things. I am someone who, when he encounters something he can't explain, reaches immediately for the mundane explanation and works through every possible version of it before considering anything else. I believe in data. I believe in evidence. I believe in the principle that when you hear hoofbeats, you look for horses before you look for zebras. I want you to hold that about me while I tell you what happened, because everything I'm about to describe I ran through that filter first, and none of it resolved into horses. It's a Wednesday night in early October. I've worked 12 hours. I come home. I eat something I don't taste. I sit on the couch in the quiet of my apartment. I live alone, have for 4 years since my divorce, and I check my phone with the specific low-grade dread of someone who has been ignoring it all day. There are messages I skip, notifications I close, and then I see the voicemail indicator. One new voicemail. I don't use voicemail much. Most people my age have abandoned it. But I keep the service because my mother still leaves voicemails sometimes, and deleting it feels like preparing for something I'm not ready to prepare for. I tap to play it without even checking the caller ID first. That's habit. I bring the phone to my ear. My own voice comes out of the speaker. My voice. Not a voice that's similar to mine. Not a voice that could be mistaken for mine in certain contexts. My voice. The flat vowels. The specific way I land on the ends of my words. The slight hesitation before sentences that's been remarked on by more than one person in my life as a characteristic pause. All of it. My voice. And it is describing a room. The room, as I describe it in the recording, has walls the color of fog. Not gray exactly, not white, but the non-color of standing inside fog. A color that is not quite a color, that seems to shift when you look at it directly. The floor is smooth and cold, like stone but not stone, like something that was made to resemble stone but is missing the particular quality that actual stone has. The ceiling is high but not visible. The light, which is present but sourceless, which seems to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, doesn't reach the ceiling. There is a window. The window is the right size and shape for a window, and it is set into the wall the way windows are set into walls, but it shows nothing. Not darkness, not light, not the blurry abstract suggestion of an exterior view. Nothing. A complete, total, perfect absence of anything. The window opens onto nothing, and looking at it for too long produces a feeling that I describe in the recording as vertigo that doesn't involve the body. A conceptual vertigo. The feeling of leaning over an edge that doesn't exist physically but exists somewhere in the architecture of perception. I describe a smell. I return to the smell multiple times throughout the recording with the focus of someone cataloging something important. The smell has two components that are always present together. Copper on top, bright and metallic, and the specific smell of fresh blood, if you've ever been close to fresh blood, and something beneath the copper that is sweet, but not food sweet, not pleasant sweet, more the way sweet becomes cloying when it's too concentrated, the sweetness of something organic at the edge of decay. I describe this smell in the recording with the patience of someone who has had a long time to study it, and that patience, that quality of deep, resigned familiarity, is one of the most disturbing things in the message when I go back and listen again, which I do more times than I should. The message is 4 minutes and 47 seconds long. For the first 3.5 minutes, I describe the room. I describe it systematically, moving from the floor to the walls to the window to the ceiling, noting dimensions, noting textures, noting the quality of the sourceless light. My voice in the recording has the register of someone giving a deposition, not afraid, not excited, just methodical. Thorough. As if thorough is the most important thing. As if the entire point of the call is to create a complete record. At 3 minutes and 40 seconds, the tone changes. The methodical quality softens. I say, in the recording, in my voice, you're going to forget this. I need you to know that because I've been here before, and you forget it every time. Every time you come here, you forget it afterward, and then you come back again and forget again. And I have been trying for. And here there is a pause, a long pause, 10 or 12 seconds of breathing, and what sounds like very quiet, very far away background noise that I have never been able to identify. And I have been trying for what might be a very long time to get this message to you. I don't know how I'm doing this from here. I don't know if it will reach you. But if you're hearing this, it reached you. And what I need you to know is that the room is real, and you come here, and the thing that is wrong about it is not that it's frightening. Though it is frightening, the thing that is wrong about it is the window. Don't look at the window too long. That's the thing I want you to know most. Whatever you do when you're here, don't look at the window. Don't stand in front of it. And if it ever starts to show something, close your eyes. Close them and don't open them. And then I say the address of the house I grew up in. The full address. Street number, street name, city, state. I say it slowly and clearly, the way you say an address to someone writing it down. The message ends 4 seconds later. I sit on the couch for a very long time without moving. I play the message again. I play it a third time with my eyes closed. I am going through the horse inventory. I am making myself go through every mundane explanation before I allow myself to consider anything else. Pocket dial. No, pocket dials don't produce coherent 4-minute narratives. Prank. I don't know anyone who could reproduce my voice this accurately, and I don't know anyone who would do this. Audio recording of me talking that someone else played into the phone. This requires someone to have recorded me saying all of these specific things in this specific order, which is not possible. Some kind of app malfunction that grabbed audio from another source. There is no source. These are not things I have ever said. This is not a room I have ever described to anyone. I call my mother. It is 10:30 at night, and she answers on the second ring the way she always answers when her adult child calls unexpectedly late. I ask her if she remembers anything unusual about our old house, anything strange that happened there when I was a child. And she gets quiet in the way she gets quiet when a question is landing in a place she'd rather it didn't. I ask her specifically about the sleepwalking, because I know I sleepwalked as a child. It's one of those family stories that gets told at holidays. She says yes, she remembers the sleepwalking. I ask her what I did when I sleepwalked. She says, usually you just walked around. You'd come into our room and stand at the foot of the bed. Nothing unusual, just a child walking around asleep. I ask if there was anything else. Another quiet. Then she says, there was one night. You were about 6 years old, maybe 6.5. Your father and I heard something in the hallway at about 3 in the morning, and we got up and you were standing in the hallway outside your room. Your eyes were open, but you weren't awake. Not really. You were talking. We couldn't understand most of it. Just sounds, just murmuring. But you kept saying the same phrase, over and over. I ask her what it was. She says, I have to call. I have to call and tell him to remember. She says they led me back to bed, and I didn't remember it in the morning. She says they mentioned it to our doctor, and he said it was normal, that children sometimes became very agitated during parasomnias, and not to worry about it. I have to call. I have to call and tell him to remember. I am 6 years old in a hallway in the middle of the night, and I am trying to make a call. I am 38 years old on a couch in the middle of an evening, and I have received the call I was trying to make. Something in me, some version of me, has been trying to make this call for 32 years. I pull up the voicemail log, and I look at the timestamp. 3:14 p.m. I was at work at 3:14 p.m. I was at my desk at 3:14 p.m., and I know this not from memory, but from fact, because my company uses security card swipes and keycard access, and I swiped into the building at 7:12 a.m., and I did not swipe out until 6:47 p.m., and my desk sits in an open floor plan with a security camera whose angle I know well, because I have stared at that camera more times than I want to admit in the weeks since this happened. I requested the footage. I asked a colleague I trust to watch it with me. We watched 17 seconds of footage from 3:13:50 to 3:14:07 p.m. I am at my desk. I am looking at my monitor. My phone is in my pocket. My phone, which is in my pocket, is making a call to my phone, which is in my pocket, and it is leaving a message in my voice. There is a second message. I found it 4 days after the first. It was there in the voicemail log as if it had been there all along. Though I check my voicemail compulsively now, and I know it wasn't there when I checked the previous afternoon. Timestamp, 4:47 a.m. I was asleep at 4:47 a.m. I was in my apartment in my bed at 4:47 a.m. The message is 2 minutes and 19 seconds long. It is my voice again. In it, I describe the window. I describe what I can see in it on this occasion. Not nothing this time. Something has appeared in the window. I describe it carefully, with that same deposition quality. I say it is a shape. I say the shape is like a person in the way that a silhouette is like a person. It has the right outline, the right proportions, but the interior of it is wrong. The interior of it is the same nothing that the window showed before, but now the nothing has an outline. A person-shaped hole in nothing, standing on the other side of the window that opens onto nothing, looking in. I describe the feeling of being looked at through the window, and I say it is not hostile, which I find almost more frightening to hear myself say than if I'd said it was hostile. I say it with a quality of relief, with the quality of someone reporting that the animal on the other side of the fence hasn't moved toward them. Not hostile, not yet, or not at this moment, or not in any way that I can currently detect. Then I say, I still haven't looked directly at it. I have been looking slightly to one side, the way you look at something very bright to save your vision. And then the message ends. I stop sleeping in total darkness after that. I sleep with the bathroom light on and the door cracked. I sleep with my phone face down on the nightstand. I have a smartwatch that monitors my sleep, and twice in the month following the second message, it has recorded me as being awake and active between 3 and 4 in the morning with no memory of waking. Both times I check my call log first thing. Both times there is nothing. Both times I cannot decide whether to feel relieved. There is a third thing. It is the thing I left out earlier, the thing at the end of the first message, the thing I hear only if I play the recording in total silence with the volume at maximum and hold my breath. Behind my voice, underneath it, the way a sound can be underneath another sound. The way you can hear two things occupying the same space if you know how to listen for both of them simultaneously. Another voice. Not human, or not entirely human, or human the way an echo is human. The way a recording of a voice played backward retains something of the original voice while becoming something else. It has the rhythm of language, the cadence and meter of speech, but the sounds don't resolve into words I can identify, except for one element. Underneath all of it, slower than the speech rhythm, consistent and regular. A pattern, a count, numbers, maybe, a countdown, maybe. I cannot confirm this with certainty, but I have listened to those 3 seconds 60 times or more, and I cannot unhear the sense of something reaching a number, something approaching a number. Something that has been approaching that number for a very long time, and is, in whatever sense of the word applies to something that exists in a room with no ceiling and a window that opens onto nothing, getting close. I set an alarm for 3 a.m. most nights now. I set it so that I am the one who wakes up and not something else. I pick up my phone before I am fully conscious, and I check it before I am fully conscious because I have learned that the window between sleeping and waking is when these things happen, and that whatever passes between that room and this one passes easiest in that window. My phone is usually clean, usually just the alarm and the date and the darkness outside. But some mornings it is warm. Some mornings the screen has been active. Some mornings the call log sits at the top of the recent list like a flag planted in territory. Evidence of something that happened while I wasn't there to see it. A message sent from a version of me that goes to that room and comes back with things to say and will not stop saying them until I understand. Until I remember. until I stop forgetting. I am trying not to forget. Story number 3. I need you to understand something before I start, and it is this. I am not the kind of person who sees things. I don't have a history of unusual experiences. I don't believe in most of what gets called paranormal. I'm a practical person, a physical person, someone who has spent 12 years getting up early and running long distances in difficult terrain as a deliberate practice in staying connected to the concrete and the physical and the real. Trail running for me has always been the opposite of mystery. It is the body's argument against abstraction. It is dirt and breath and the arithmetic of distance. It is one of the most grounded things I do. I tell you this so you understand what it meant for me to be standing on that trail at mile 6 of a 9-mile loop with my hands trembling and my heart doing something arrhythmic and wrong, and realizing that what I was looking at, what I was experiencing, had no place inside any framework I had built for understanding the world. The trail is a loop. 9 miles, marked, maintained, run by hundreds of people every year. I have run it so many times I have it memorized the way you memorize a route you commute every day. Not consciously, just bodily, the terrain absorbed into muscle memory so that my legs know the uphills before my eyes register them, so that I know the exact route to step over at mile 2 and the exact rock outcrop to touch with my left hand at the beginning of the descent at mile 7. It is my home trail. It is where I go when I need to run without thinking about running. On the morning I'm describing, it is a Sunday in mid-October, one of those October mornings that New England occasionally produces as if apologizing for the coming winter. Clear, cool, the sky a blue that seems deeper than blue should be. The maples along the trail gone entirely orange and red, the light coming through them amber-filtered and almost warm. I park at the trailhead at 6 a.m. There is one other car in the lot, a Subaru I half recognize as belonging to someone else who runs this loop early. I feel good. I stretch for 3 minutes, which is 2 minutes more than I usually bother with, and I start. The first mile is a gentle climb through open deciduous forest, the trail wide and well-worn, the kind of running that warms you up without taxing you. I am at 8 minutes per mile, easy, breathing through my nose. The light is the specific gold of 6 a.m. in October, and it comes through the canopy at a low angle, lighting the trail and moving patches when the leaves stir. I am not thinking about anything in particular, which is the state I come out here to achieve. I am just moving. I am just a body in space, covering ground, burning through the fog of the week behind me. I see the old man at the point where the trail passes through a small meadow clearing before re-entering the trees, about 1 mile in. He is standing in the clearing, off to the right of the trail, in the space between 2 large maples that form something like a natural gateway at the meadow's edge. He is wearing a white dress shirt, the kind with a collar and small buttons, tucked into dark pants that are pressed, that have a crease in them. His shoes are dark leather, the kind of shoes you wear to a funeral or a formal dinner, not shoes you wear in a meadow in a forest in the early morning. He is standing with his arms at his sides and his hands open, palms turned slightly inward toward his legs, and he is facing the trail. Facing me. He is perhaps 65, perhaps 70, with white hair and a face that is still and composed in a way that reads, from a distance, as either very calm or very uninhabited. I notice him specifically because of the stillness. Runners and hikers and even birdwatchers carry a certain ambient movement in them, the hand adjusting binoculars, the weight shifting, the head turning at a sound. He has none of that movement. He is as still as something placed there. I lift a hand as I pass him. A runner's nod, nothing more. He doesn't respond. His eyes are on me, but they don't track me in the way eyes track something moving. They stay fixed at a point in space, and I move through that space, and his gaze doesn't follow. I register this as odd, and I am past him before I've fully processed it. And then the trail curves back into the trees, and he is behind me, and I think, strange man, not a hiker, Maybe he walks here in the mornings. Maybe he lives near the trailhead. Maybe he has some kind of condition that affects his mobility or his responsiveness. I give him a dozen ordinary explanations in 30 seconds, and I let it go. Miles 2, 3, and 4 are the heart of the loop. The trail gets narrower, the canopy thicker. There is a long climb at mile 2 that takes you up a granite ridge with good views to the north, and then a long descent on the other side that you have to take carefully, because the trail is technical there. Lots of exposed root and loose stone, and places where one bad footfall means a twisted ankle or worse. I love this section. I love the problem solving of it, the way it forces full attention. I move through it well, posting a solid time on the descent, and I come out at the bottom onto a flat stretch along a seasonal stream that in October is barely running. Just a thread of water over mossy rock. And here the trail widens again, and there is a view upstream that I have always found beautiful. There is a clearing here, too, smaller than the meadow at mile 1. More of a widening in the trail, a place where the trees step back on the left side and let in a rectangle of sky. I am breathing hard from the descent, and I slow slightly to let my heart rate come back down, and I see him in this clearing. The same old man. Same dress shirt, same dark pants, same leather shoes. Same position, arms at sides, palms inward, feet together, facing the trail. Facing me. I stop. I stop completely, which I almost never do mid-run, and I stand on the trail and I look at him. He is maybe 20 feet away. I can see his face clearly in the October morning light. He is looking at me. His eyes are pointed at me, but they are not looking in the way that implies an interior. In the way that eyes suggest the person behind them is registering you, processing you, preparing a response to your presence. They are looking in the way that a window looks in a direction. Orientation without attention. The surface of looking without the thing that lives behind looking. His chest is not moving. I notice this, and I tell myself that I am too far away to see someone's breathing clearly. That this is a perceptual limitation, not an observation, and I believe this for about 30 seconds before I stop believing it. His chest is not moving. His nostrils are not moving. His shirt is not moving. And the wind is moving the leaves above him and moving the grasses at his feet, and is not moving him at all, not even slightly, not even the slight subtle movement that warm-blooded standing bodies always have, that subconscious micro-movement of being alive. He is as still as a painting of a man. He is as still as a man would be if a man were made entirely of something that did not require motion to maintain itself. I say hello. I say it at normal conversational volume, maybe slightly louder. Nothing. Not a twitch, not a blink, not a shift in the orientation of his eyes. I say, "Are you all right? Are you lost? Do you need help?" Nothing. The same fixed, directionless gaze. The same total, absolute stillness. I take 2 steps toward him, off the trail, into the clearing, and the moment my feet leave the packed dirt of the trail and touch the grass of the clearing, I feel something that I don't have a clean clinical name for. The closest I can come is a pressure behind my sternum, a specific concentrated resistance in the center of my chest, the feeling that the space between me and where I am trying to go is more substantial than space is supposed to be. Not fear, not a fight or flight response. Something more fundamental than that. The body saying no in the oldest language the body has. I back up onto the trail. I run. I run the next 2 miles at a pace I have no business running at mile 4+ of a 9-mile loop. A pace that is burning through reserves I'll need later, and I don't care. I run because running is the only thing that makes sense, the only thing my body will agree to. And I run until the trail comes out onto a small summit with a view, an exposed granite ledge where I've stopped dozens of times to look north and catch my breath, and I stop there and I put my hands on my knees and I breathe and I think. The thinking I do on that ledge is a category of thinking I don't often engage in. The inventory not of evidence, but of implications. If the man is real and ordinary, he is at the second location on the trail by some means I can't account for, because the second location is 4 miles from the first via trail, and there is no other route, no shortcut, no road access within 2 miles in any direction, and he was at the first location less than 40 minutes ago. If the man is real but not ordinary, if what I'm encountering is something that wears the appearance of an ordinary old man, then the question of what it is and what it wants is one I am not equipped to answer on a granite ledge in October with my heart still racing. If what I saw was an artifact, a hallucination, some form of optical illusion or visual distortion produced by fatigue or dehydration or altitude, or some deficiency in myself that I haven't been diagnosed with yet, then I should go back to the car, go home, drink water, call my doctor. These are the 3 branches. I stand on the ledge and I try to decide which branch feels most true in my body, the body that backs away from clearings before my mind decides to, tells me clearly and without ambiguity that it is not the 3rd branch. I run mile 5 in silence. The trail dips back into the forest here, going from the exposed summit down through a long switchbacking descent into a valley where the trees are older and larger, where the canopy is high and the forest floor is open underneath it, where you can see for 40 or 50 feet in every direction through the trunks. I run slowly here. I run slowly and I look. I am watching the spaces between the trees. I am watching for stillness inside movement, for the place in the forest where the ambient movement of leaves and branches and small forest animals stops and something else begins. I am at mile 6 when I see him the 3rd time. There is a section of trail at mile 6 where a massive fallen oak has created a clearing to the east. The oak came down in a storm several years ago and hasn't been cleared, just rerouted around, and the space where it fell is open to the sky, and in the summer it fills in with ferns, and in October it is brown and flat and clear. He is in this clearing. Same position, same clothes, same stillness. But we are close this time. He is perhaps 10 feet from the trail edge, which is the closest I've been to him at any of the 3 positions. And at 10 feet, I can see him with a clarity I couldn't manage at the meadow or the stream. I can see that his color is wrong. Not dramatically wrong, not the green of illness or the gray of blood loss, but wrong in the way that light sometimes falls wrong on certain surfaces, making them look less solid than they should, making them look like they are occupying the visual field slightly differently from the things around them. He looks less present than the trees behind him. He looks less present than the fallen oak. He looks like a photograph of a man placed in a real landscape. The resolution slightly off, the depth slightly unconvincing. I stop on the trail. I don't go off at this time. I stand on the packed dirt with my hands at my sides, and I look at him and I say, very quietly, "What do you want?" Not shouting, not afraid, exactly, or not only afraid. Something larger than fear, something that includes fear as a component the way a chord includes individual notes. He doesn't respond. He is not going to respond. I understand this at mile 6 in a way I didn't fully understand it at mile 4. He doesn't respond because whatever he is, responding is not part of what it does. Being present is part of what it does. Being seen is part of what it does. 3 times on a 9-mile loop, 3 times seen, 3 times standing at the edge of a clearing in the same position as if waiting, as if marking a place, as if indicating a direction. He turns his head. He turns it slowly, with a mechanical smoothness that has none of the organic quality of human movement. And he looks to his left, into the trees north of the clearing, and his gaze draws mine the way a pointing hand draws attention, the way a sound from a specific direction makes you look there before you've decided to. I look where he is looking, into the trees. For several seconds I see nothing but trees. And then I see the shape. It is standing 15 feet into the forest between 2 large pines, and it is human in outline, the right height, the right bilateral symmetry, the right basic distribution of mass in the shape of a standing person. But it is wrapped in darkness, not shadowed, not standing in shade, wrapped, enveloped, as if darkness is adhering to it the way darkness doesn't adhere to ordinary things, as if it is generating its own absence of light, maintaining it actively. It is visible only because of this, because the darkness around it is more intentional than the ordinary shadows of a forest, because it has edges where ordinary shadow doesn't have edges. And it is looking at me. I know it is looking at me with no evidence beyond what my body knows. The same body that backed off the grass in the second clearing, the same body that chose the pace at mile 4. My body knows it is being looked at, and my body is very still, and my body is very certain. The shape raises its right arm. Slowly, a horizontal extension, elbows slightly bent, wrists slightly tilted. The gesture of waving. The gesture of greeting. The gesture of someone who has been waiting for someone who is late and is acknowledging that they have finally arrived. I run the last 3 miles with everything I have. I run them with my eyes on the trail directly in front of my feet and nowhere else. I do not look into the trees. I do not look into the clearings I pass. I do not look anywhere but the next 6 feet of packed dirt and root and stone that I need to navigate to keep moving, to keep my feet under me, to not fall and be still and be found still in this forest by whatever is in it. I reach the trailhead at 8:12 a.m. The Subaru is gone. My car is alone in the lot. I get in and I lock the doors and I sit there for 2 hours with the engine running and the radio on and the specific ordinary noise of morning filling the car around me. I tell myself I am done with this trail. I tell myself I am done with early mornings in remote forests. I tell myself I will run roads. I will run in populated areas. I will run where other people are visible at all times and where nothing can stand 15 feet off the path and wave at me from inside a darkness it carries with it. I tell myself this and I believe it, and for 3 weeks I run roads. For 3 weeks, everything is normal. For 3 weeks I sleep without incident and wake up the way a person wakes up, gradually, in their body, in their bed, in their ordinary life. And then I wake up on a Tuesday morning and my shoes are beside my bed. Both of them, placed neatly, side by side, toes pointed toward the door. And they are covered in red clay mud. The specific red clay that is on that trail and on no trail within 20 miles of my apartment. The clay is dry, which means it was wet and then dried, which means I was wearing these shoes on that trail, which means sometime between when I went to bed and when I woke up, I went back. I have no memory of going back. My car keys are in their place by the door. My car is in its space in the lot. There is no other explanation I have been able to construct, no other source for this specific mud, and I have tried. I have tried hard. Because the alternative is that something brought me back to that trail while I was sleeping and returned me to my bed and placed my shoes beside me. And that alternative is one I cannot hold in my mind for very long without the center of it giving way. I have moved since then. I don't live near that trail anymore. I run only on roads, in daylight, in neighborhoods where I can see other people at all times. I run routes where there are no forests, no clearings, no old men standing in the particular stillness of things that are not alive, but are also not dead. I am careful. I am very careful about when I sleep and what I check when I wake up. I am careful about my shoes. But I think about the wave sometimes. I think about the gesture of it, that slow, deliberate lift of the arm, that patient acknowledgement. I think about what it would mean if that gesture was recognition. If whatever was standing there had been waiting for me specifically, had been positioned on that trail at those 3 specific locations because it knew my route, knew my timing, knew that I would come past at those intervals on that particular morning. I think about what it would mean to be known by something like that, to be expected, to be waited for. And I think about the fact that when I ran past that shape in the darkness, it waved at me like I was someone it had been looking forward to seeing. and I think about the mud on my shoes. And I wonder if being brought back to that trail in my sleep, with no memory of the journey, is the beginning of something, or the continuation of something that has already been underway for longer than I know. I wonder if I am 3 miles into a loop I don't remember starting. I wonder if somewhere in those trees, in that forest, at the edge of a clearing where something stands in darkness of its own making, something is waiting for me to come around again, to come around that last bend, to complete the loop. I run in the middle of the day now. I run where there are other people. I run fast. I don't let myself get to 3.